Hey everybody, and Tony here with a review of Sarah Brightman's and Gregorian's Royal Christmas Gala, along with the Royal Symphony Orchestra, which I saw at Tempodrom. And accompanying Sarah Brightman and Gregorian were tenors Mario Frangulis and Fernando Varela, countertenor Narcis, and harpist Alisa Sadikova. Now, I was completely excited for this particular concert because not only was this the first time I saw Sarah Brightman live, considering the many experiences I've had with her listening to her records and watching some recordings of her on YouTube and on DVD and VHS, but I also saw a fine cavalcade of classical crossover singers and of course the members of Gregorian, and this was definitely a concert worth remembering because of the wide range of repertoire that these singers specialize in, and of course it was definitely a fine musical event. Now, I know that it's kind of rare for me to talk about the production design when it comes to this particular concert, but let me just say that the overall production design when it comes to how it was lit and how the colors were used, and especially that of Sarah Brightman's costumes, were absolutely fabulous. There was a lot of heart and effort put into making this concert bloom and come alive, and it was a marvelous visual feast. And now we get to the singers, starting off with Sarah Brightman, who I have been following her career for many years. I first heard of her ever since I was 9 years old, and I was introduced to this particular singer through one of my aunts from my mom's side of the family, and it was through a VHS recording of Andrea Bocelli live in Tuscany that I first got acquainted with Sarah Brightman as a singer. She sang a duet with Bocelli, which was specifically Time to Say Goodbye. From then on there, I started to be a lot more familiar with her works, especially when it came to hearing her rendition of Santa's Coming to Town. And I also collected some of her albums, most notably Eden, her best of album classics, and of course La Luna. And I enjoy Sarah Brightman as a singer. What's so remarkable about her is how flexible she is. She can use a softer tone for the more modern songs and for the more contemporary songs, and she can use her operatic voice when it comes to the more classical pieces. What made Sarah Brightman very famous was her role of Christine Daae from Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera back in 1986. Through this particular role, she was put on the map as a classical crossover singer. She even participated in a lot of Andrew Lloyd Webber's works, including the Pie Jesu from his Requiem, and of course, one of the roles in Cats. And from then on there, her classical crossover singing career jettisoned. From singing arias from La Valle, Gianni Schicchi, and even that of Handel's Rinaldo, to even singing some Broadway songs, and of course, some songs based on classical pieces, Sarah Brightman has established herself to be a very popular classical crossover singer. And what also makes her quite noticeable as a performer is that in each of her concerts, she wears all of these gorgeous costumes, which make her look so elegant and almost make her look like as if though that she stepped out of a fairy tale book. And that's also the impression I managed to get from tonight's concert. The costume she wore looked absolutely gorgeous on her. And of course, her voice showed no signs of strain nor any signs of aging whatsoever. It still had that freshness and that beauty which I love so much in Madame Brightman. And she also shows a great amount of longevity and endurance in everything she did. Her major highlights include Pie Jesu from Andrew Lloyd Webber's Requiem in which she sang this as a duet with Narcis, who I'll gladly talk about him much later. And she even sang some Christmas songs, including that of Silent Night and, of course, the traditional song Amazing Grace. And let's not forget about her rendition of Miesiczku na nebi hlubokiem, in which she sang in Italian as La Luna. And I thought that she managed to do a very great job in everything she sang. Whether she sang in duets or as a soloist, I have to say that Sarah Brightman was, as always, a flawless performing artist. Oh, and major kudos also has to go to her rendition of Phantom of the Opera, in which she sang with Mario Frangulis, who sang the Phantom's part. It was yet another wonderful highlight, which made me so full of bliss. Then we also go to Gregorian. Now, I have mainly been following this particular group through their name and through the songs they specialize in. And I really have to give it to Gregorian for leaving me in complete awe, and of course, for having such great collaboration. These gentlemen had such excellent musicianship. They were able to work so flawlessly as a team when it came to the songs they sang. And of course, there was a lot of discipline, diligence, great artistry, and a lot of great musicality found in all 8 gentlemen who took part tonight. Their major highlights included a rendition of Pomp and Circumstance, in which they also added in some lyrics to fit this particular season, and of course, their rendition of Walking in the Air, which sounded so epic and so beautiful to listen to. The way they were able to sing this iconic song was not only moving, but it almost brought me to tears. They were a magnificent group from beginning to end, and their collaborations with Sarah Brightman were equally as flawless. Then we also go to Mario Frangulis, who I've also been following his career ever since I was 11 years old. And I first heard this gentleman when he sang Vincerò, Perderò from one of my classical CDs. And my first impression on Mario Frangulis' voice was that I thought he was astounding as a singer. The way he was able to shade his voice in certain phrases, and the way he was able to let his voice bloom and bloom and bloom was so wonderful to listen to. And just by listening to him live, I can definitely tell that he was a charismatic, charming, and just simply put, a fine singer with his debonair stage presence, that type of handsome masculinity that he has, which makes him all the more dashing, and of course, his flawless musicianship, which made him stand out very well, and of course, how versatile he was as a musician. He was able to stand out very well. His rendition of Jingle Bells was really fun and charming to listen to, and I also love his rendition of Panis Angelicus, which I thought was not only heart-wrenching and moving, but was just gorgeous. And let's not forget about his duets with Sarah Brightman, especially Phantom of the Opera. I mean, their voices blended so handsomely, with Sarah Brightman's youthful and lovely lyric soprano voice, which can reach the heights of a coloratura soprano, combined with Mario Frangulis' full lyric tenor voice. Their voices were like absolute heaven to listen to. And I also have to give Mr. Frangulis loads of credit for everything he had to offer in terms as a singer. He was able to be charismatic. He was able to also steal the show so well that I was completely astounded by his fine talents. Equally as outstanding was Fernando Varela, yet another tenor who hailed from Puerto Rico but was also raised in the USA. And just by listening to him sing, there was a lot of charisma and passion, beauty, and a lot of style, which are found in not only his voice, but his manner. He started off his performance with a completely original song known as Gloria, and he was able to make such a striking first impression on me that I was blown away. He was able to sing all of his lines so flawlessly and so commandingly that I was at the edge of my seat. And it also helped that I was in complete awe of his rendition of Nessun Dorma. Sure, the high D at the end did sound a little bit uncalled for and should have been more suited to singing something like Possente amor mi chiama, or even that of Tu che a Dio spiegaste l'ali from Rigoletto and Lucia de la Memor respectively. Heck, I would have loved to hear him sing A mes amis from Donizetti's La Fille de Regiment, and even the cabaletta Pour mon homme, complete with the 9 high C's. I would have also loved to hear him sing something from Guillaume Tell, which is basically Arnaud's aria, Asile héréditaire, and from what I know from the Italian version, Goriam Vogliam, complete with some high C's. I'm sure that Mr. Varela is perfect for all of these high singing tenor roles. I mean, why he hasn't been hired at the Met, I will never know. But this is a tenor opera houses should look out for because he is passionate about his craft. He is someone who shows a lot of pure dedication to everything he does. And of course, as a musician, he was in his finest element. The way he was able to use that high-flying lyric tenor voice to such a great advantage was so awe-inspiring. Heck, I would have even loved to hear him sing something like A Teo Cara from Bellini's I Puritani. I'm sure that a lot of the bel canto stuff would also suit this wonderfully charismatic tenor well. And I'm sure that if he ever has a solo concert, I would also love to hear him sing these particular bel canto arias as well. And I also have to give major kudos to Narcis, a fine young countertenor whose voice to me sounded more like a boy soprano, mostly because the timbre, the emission, and the way he was able to sing all those high notes were completely reminiscent of a soprano. The clarity that he has and that silvery texture which is present in his voice made me initially think that he was more of a soprano than a countertenor. But thanks to an acquaintance audience member, I actually found out that Narcis was actually a countertenor, which was kind of unusual to my ears because, in my opinion, countertenors do sound like higher tenors, whereas with Narcis, he sounded a lot more like a boy soprano because of the emission that he has, the timbre, and of course, that texture that he has in his voice, which is silvery and light and almost feminine sounding, which is very interesting to listen to. And I have to give him lots of kudos for everything he did. For someone who is still in his early 20s, he certainly has a wonderful career ahead of him. I'm sure that his career has been blossoming, and he also did an overall fine job with his renditions of O Mio Babino Caro, and how he also joined Sarah Brightman in the Piezo duet. He was an absolutely fine singer, and I cannot wait to see where his future will go. Alisa Sadikova was yet another fine performer. For someone who is currently 14 years old, she certainly showed a lot of grace and elegance in the way she played the harp. There was this absolute professionalism which she had, and it's something that made her stand out so well as a musician. She was precise and she was an absolutely dedicated and lovely young girl with a brilliant future ahead of her. Special acknowledgement has to go to the two dancers who not only performed excerpts from The Nutcracker by Tchaikovsky, but also joined along with Sarah Brightman when she sang the second to the last number. So overall, the singing from everyone was absolutely fabulous. From the headliners of Sarah Brightman and Gregorian all the way up to Mario Frangulis, Fernando Varela, Narcis, and of course, some wonderful harp playing done by Alisa Sadikova. Every artist was in their absolute A game tonight. And of course, the Royal Symphony Orchestra were wonderful all throughout. They also helped to make the evening stunning. I also have to give a lot of kudos to the Scottish man who not only played on his bagpipes but also sang a few songs. I thought he was just wonderful. So overall, what a great way to celebrate the festive season with not only Sarah Brightman, but also Gregorian, Mario Frangulis, Fernando Varela, Narcis, and Alisa Sadikova. Everyone was able to do such a flawless job, whether it be the singing or the dancing or the harp playing. And when you have such a fine orchestra like the Royal Symphony Orchestra, then you know that your evening is just so awesome. And for those of you who watched this particular concert, what did you think of it? Did you feel like Sarah Brightman and Gregorian were at their absolute strongest? Did you feel like the other singers like Mario Frangulis, Fernando Varela, and Narcis stole the show? Or did you feel like there was something or someone that just didn't really hold up? Comment below and let me know. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in for another review. So until then, good night everybody.